Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you with another deck profile, and for today's video we're going to be doing an updated Tearlament list. Now when constructing this month's deck profile, I pretty much went into it with the assumption that at some point we're going to be getting a list, right? And as a result, I've basically just neglected to take into account for decks like Mitsurugi, Raziel, and Malice, and instead I shifted my entire focus onto playing against decks like Dracotail, K9, and Yummy, for example. So with that in mind, let's just jump right into it. As always, we'll be starting off with the monster lineup first, and we're of course going to be playing 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart, as it's pretty much the premier starter of the deck, right? Whether it's normal or special summoned, you're able to send any tier monster except itself from your deck to the graveyard. So if you want to milk a couple of cards, you send Tearlaments Kashtira, and if you want a fusion summon, you send literally any of the other guys. But yeah, when it comes to pure tier, the entire deck runs through Reinoheart being summoned at some point. Then, to accompany our 3 Reinohearts, we're playing 3 Tearlaments Kashtira, who, on normal or special summon, is able to mill 3 cards either from your deck or your opponent's deck, but let's be real, it's pretty much always going to be your deck, just so you can continuously thin out your deck more and ideally get a good majority of the cards in your deck to the graveyard. Then, as mentioned previously, when this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you're able to mill 2 more cards, so just a potential 5-card mill is pretty good. Then, for the 1-of tiers, we have the 1-of Scheiren, the 1-of Havnis, and the 1-of Merrli. They're all capable of milling 3 cards, but more importantly, these are the ones that just allow you to fusion summon, as when they're sent to the graveyard by card effect, you're able to fusion summon using this card, specifically, the one that gets sent, as well as any card from your hand, field, or graveyard. So, yeah, this is literally all the Tearlament cards available to us, so we just max out on all of them. That's it for the tier monsters, though. And then for the other cards, we're playing 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, just so that we can stop any potential mulch armies, but admittedly, Ash Blossom is pretty good into like the Dracotail matchup, for example, just because there are so many cards, especially their traps, right, that try to search, and that basically means that you can like just trade for like 1-for-1 so that they can't interact with your board all that consistently. But yeah, it's basically just there for the charmies. And then we are going to be playing a small Fiendsmith engine, just being the 2 Fiendsmith engravers and the 1 Fabled Lurrie. Now, we're not going to be playing the Lacrima, which means that we're not going to be playing cards like Desiree or Fiendsmith in Paradise. Instead, we're just going to be entirely focusing these 2, and I guess Lurrie, into being rank 6 turbo machines. So they're either going to go for the Pilgrim Reaper, depending on if we need mills, or they're going to go for the DDD Wave High King Caesar if we need to like just add additional special summon negates. But point is, they're great hand trap baits that if they do manage to go through, pretty much just allow us to secure the game a lot more easily. And then for the 1-of monsters that are also being played in the deck, we're playing 1 Mudora the Sword Oracle to be able to shuffle back resources, either ours or our opponents, 1 Helshaddoll Hollow so that we can axe Helshaddoll Winda, but it also allows us to mill a couple of more cards, right? As if this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you're able to mill equal to the number of different attributes you control, which is typically 2, and 2 cards is nothing to scoff at, that's a lot of the times can just get you there, similarly to Tearlaments Kashtira. So yeah, really like that. And then lastly, 1 Beastking of the Swamp so that we could access Tearlaments Rukulos, which we are also going to be playing. And with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can finally move on to the spell and trap portion. Now that we're on the spell and trap portion of the video, we're of course going to be starting off with 3 Primeval Planet perlereino. This is pretty much like the main consistency card, right? And this is something that you always want to have access to when possible, as if it's activated, you can search your deck for any single one of your Tearlament monsters. So you can get your Tier Caches to mill, you can get your Reinohearts to mill, you can get any of your limited guys to potentially mill, but more importantly, probably fusion summon. But yeah, this card, it just gets the entire engine going, and as if that wasn't already enough, whenever a tier monster gets shuffled back into the deck, and that includes when they're summoning or they're putting themselves down to the bottom for a fusion summon, you get to pop a card on the field, either yours or your opponent's. So it's a great way to trigger and just like get rid of cards like Sulliek or maybe Trivikarma that you don't really necessarily want on your side of the field, and you'd much rather just like use their secondary effects to search something. But yeah, Planet, really good. And then obviously like it boosts all your fusions and your tier monsters by 500 attack, so it just lets you go for game a little bit more easily. Then to accompany our 3 planets, we're playing our 3 Tearlaments Grief, who if you or your opponent decides to normal summon or special summon a monster while you control a face-up tier monster, you're capable of milling 3 more cards, and then for the rest of the turn, all of your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack for whatever reason. I don't know why, it just does that. But more importantly, this basically means that you can mill 3 cards during your turn, and you can mill 3 cards during your opponent's turn. So just like another great consistency piece. And then when this one happens to be milled, you're able to search your deck for any of your Tearlament traps. So yeah, 3 Scream to accompany our 3 planets, pretty good. And that's it for the 3-ofs. And then for the 2-ofs, we're playing 2 Super Polymerization, 2 Book of Eclipse, and 2 Forbidden Droplet. Now, I've basically opted to go with the max value approach, or I guess like the more generic approach, so that we can go into as many matchups as possible, as consistently as possible. And these 3 cards pretty much just allow us to do that, right? As they allow us to play into pretty much every single board that Canine, Vanquish Soul, Yummy, or even Dracotail can try and make against us. And even against like a bunch of rogue matchups, these cards are just phenomenal, especially Book of Eclipse right now. Yeah, they're all fantastic. And then we're only playing 2 of each though. And as for like the third copies, I've elected to just side them instead, right? So say for example, we're playing against like a Vanquish Soul Canine, and Super Poly, while admittedly isn't the greatest into that matchup, these 2 cards are. So we can just take out both of our Super Polys and then add in 1 Book of Eclipse and 1 Forbidden Droplet, and just like that, we've made the matchup just a little bit more favorable. And then the same applies to decks like Yummy and Dracotail, or just anything else, right? So yeah, I really like this ratio, and then it just makes siding so much more simpler. So yeah, 2 of each, perfectly fine. But if you want to play like 3 and 3, I'd probably go with like triple Book of Eclipse and triple Droplet in the main, and then side the Super Polys. But like I said, I wanted to be able to cover as many matches as possible. Then that's it for the 2 ofs, and then the 1 ofs. We play the 1 of Triple Tactics Talent, the 1 of Call by the Grave, you know, just generic cards that allow us to punish hand traps, 1 of Foolish Burial to send any monster, Foolish Burial Goods to send any spell or trap, Tearlaments Grief to be able to special summon any tier monster from either our deck or our grave. You just have to send another card or another monster on your side of the field with the same type of attribute, and you can in fact send the same monster that you special summoned, right? And that does come up pretty frequently, right? Especially when you open this card with, say, a Tearlaments Kashtira in your hand, right? So you activate your Tearlaments Grief, you special summon a Tearlaments Reinoheart, you send the Tearlaments Reinoheart. Tearlaments Reinoheart's effect will activate in the graveyard, and then you can chain the Tear Cache in your hand to special summon itself, banishing the Grief, and just like that, you basically still are able to bring out the Reinoheart even if you don't discard. So, yeah, it's just a really good card. And then when this card is like sent to the graveyard by card effect, you get to search, or you get to add back any of your banished traps. So yeah, pretty solid. Then for the final spell, the 1 Fiendsmith Tract, just to bring the entire Fiendsmith engine all together. That's it for the spells though. And then for the traps, we're playing 2 Tearlaments Sulliek to negate our opponent's monster's effects, and as well as that, it's able to search our deck for any tier monster whenever it's sent to the graveyard by card effect. We're playing 1 Tearlaments Metanoise to be able to add back cards such as our Tearlaments Kashtira and our Tearlaments Reinoheart whenever it's sent to the graveyard by card effect. And then I guess it's also like a Book of Moon, but truth be told, we definitely care more about the adding back than the booking. And then lastly, we play 1 Trivikarma, who, when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it in order to add any single spell or trap that mentions Visa Starfrost, which just so happens to be every single Tearlaments spell and trap. So Tear Planet, Grief, Scream, Sulliek, Metanoise, whatever. You can add them all. And with that, that's the spell and trap lineup, and now we can finally move on to the extra deck. Now that we're finally on the extra deck portion of the video, we'll be starting off with the Link monsters first, and as a result, that means that we're going to be playing 1 Fiendsmith Requiem, which is literally just there to summon out engravers from the deck, 1 Moon of the Closed Heaven, so that any 2 monsters becomes full Fiendsmith combo, 1 IP Masquerena, which is just being used as our end board piece in order to go into the SP Little Knight. Now, you can play Sprite Brand, but I just opted to side it for this specific version, but it's one of those cards that's just constantly coming in and out of the deck, right? But SP Little Knight is always going to be in the deck, so figured I might as well just, you know, show that off. So IP into SP, banish a card, and then it's pretty good. That's it for the links, though. And then for the Exceeds, we're playing 1 number 60 Dugares, the Timeless. We don't care about the Reborn effect, and we definitely don't care about the Boost effect, but we do actually care a lot about the Draw 2 Discard one, just because it allows us to dig our deck a little bit more deeper. And not only that, get rid of key cards that we don't really want in our hand, like the Trivikarmas or the Sullieks or Reinohearts that we want to trigger. So yeah, Dugares, pretty solid. And then for the other rank 4, we're playing 1 Time Thief Redoer. This is just one of those cards that I enjoy including just because it gives the deck a lot more versatility, right? And this is also the one that allows us to basically trigger Scheiren's graveyard effect whenever we want, as you just overlay Scheiren with any level 4 monster, and then you activate its effect to detach. And because it detaches for effect, it will trigger your Scheiren as well as getting all the bonus effects. So you can pretty much like do like a fusion summon whenever you want. And not only that, it's just like a general nuisance as well, because during every standby phase, you get to take the top card of your opponent's deck and just be, you know, just like a nuisance. And then you also get like additional effects depending on what you take. Because if it's a spell, you get to draw a card. A monster, you banish until the end phase. And if it's a trap, you get to take a face-up card that they control and put it on top of the deck. So yeah, Redoer. Really silly card. I just love including it. And then for the rank 6s, we're playing the 1 Pilgrim Reaper to be able to mill 5 cards from each player's deck. And this is pretty much just used as like a last resort whenever we just need mills desperately. But, you know, 5 mills can definitely get the job done. Then we're playing one DDD Wave High King Caesar as our another like key end board piece, right? And this is pretty much only made if we don't go to the Pilgrim Reaper, as we only have enough level 6s typically for one rank 6 summon, except under like super rare situations. But for the most part, yeah, it's one or the other. And like I said, if you want to mill, you go for Pilgrim. If you want to negate special summons, you go for Caesar. And then that's it for the Exceeds. And then for the links, we're playing one Helshaddoll Winda to go with our Helshaddoll Hollow, just because it's a really strong floodgate. And I guess like the only deck that truly has like a real out to it, like in board, would be Raizio because of Exit. But like I said, we don't care about that one when we were building this. We care more about the other three, which definitely struggle against this card. One Necroquip Princess, so that even if we can basically just make Engraver become a rank 6 play whenever we want because of Necroquip. So yeah, gotta include that. And then for the Super Poly targets, the one Muddragon of the Swamp, the one Guru Wings of Resonant Life, and the one Predaplant Dragostapelia. So even if you're not summoning these off of Super Poly, which we can, these can still be brought out extremely naturally just because they just naturally synergize with the tier engine themselves, and you're probably going to be summoning them more often than not through your tier effects than Super Poly. But yeah, these are basically like the best staples to include with if you're playing Super Poly. And then for the final two monsters, we're playing the one Tearlaments Rucolos, which you're pretty much only going to be able to bring out with your Beastking of the Swamp, because unfortunately Kit Kolos is banned, but you know, we make do with what we have, and this is the one that allows us to negate special summons. And then lastly, we're playing one Tearlaments Kaleidoheart, who is typically made a lot more frequently than Rucolos, but yeah, this card is like the perfect boss monster, right? On special summon, or if a Aqua monster is sent from the deck to the graveyard, you're able to shuffle any of your opponent's cards back into the deck, and it does target, so you know, just be aware. And then when this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, it's able to reborn itself once per turn, and then foolish any of your tier cards, right? Cards, not monsters, cards. So you can send your traps, your spells, monsters, whatever. And yeah, you know, this card really solid. So with that, that's the Tearlament list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.